Hi, I'm Carla with Race to Walk. Thanks for joining us today. And I'm here today with AJ Buchanan of Elijah Rising. And we are going to be talking today a little bit about his organization, what they do. And we are also going to be sharing with you a little bit about a book called Fierce Compassion, which is about an abolitionist named Donaldina Cameron. So before we get started, AJ, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and about your organization?
Sure. First off, Carla, thanks so much for having me on. It's a pleasure and a privilege be able to get to share a little bit about Elijah Rising, what we do, and also share a little bit about Donaldina Cameron and her life and why she's so inspiring to us as an organization. So I'm AJ Buchanan, Operations Director for Elijah Rising. And what we do is we combat human trafficking through prayer, awareness, restoration, and intervention. And how that works is Elijah Rising was actually founded as a prayer meeting back in 2011. A group of people got together and were just fed up with the injustice of human trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation of women, specifically in Houston, and realized that the most important thing and the most powerful thing we can do is pray. And so started off as a prayer meeting and then transitioned to a full-fledged nonprofit. And what we do through our restoration and awareness and intervention avenues or arms of Elijah Rising. Restoration, we provide a full residential restorative care program for women who are exiting the life and want to figure out how to get back on their feet and find counseling, find healing. We also do intervention, which might seem really intimidating, but what we do is we bring information to women who are caught up in human trafficking. So we go to the places where they are. So that would be like your illicit massage businesses, your like traditional tracks where women are out that are trapped in prostitution, your like cantinas, which are similar like local bars, and your strip clubs. And so we go out and we bring people information about what it looks like to exit or how they can access resources. So that's what our intervention looks like. And then awareness, we offer van tours, giving people insight as to where this is happening in their community, because human trafficking doesn't just happen in like downtown Houston or in places that are far from your home, but it's actually right around the corner, and it's in your neighborhood, and it's down the street from your church and down the street from your kid's school. And bringing awareness so that people know where it um, is how we get people engaged and brought into this fight against human trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. And so we want as many people to be aware so that they can grab a hold of this passion that we have at Elijah Rising and help see human trafficking ended. So that's a little bit about what we do. And yeah.
Awesome. Actually, we have live in Kingwood, and the little strip where they have the hotel right on 59. They've had multiple times. They've had trafficking busts there,
Mhm.
and there was some. I can't remember which website it was. I don't know if it was an FBI site, but they had like they had a map with the area places where they had like massage parlors where they found trafficking, and there were a couple of them actually in the community where I live. So it's kind of eye opening when you start realizing, it's right in front of you. It's not, like you said, it's not off somewhere else. It's just probably around you all the time. You don't even realize it.
Exactly. And I had a coworker come to my office and share with me just recently the most recent stat that we have for Houston. And one of those is that we have over 300 illicit massage businesses or brothels in the city of Houston. And that
Wow.
was done by a well-respected research firm. So it's shocking when you think about what 300 would actually look like within the city. So it's definitely a problem. Definitely in every part of Houston too. So
Yeah, so when I contacted Elijah Rising, I had actually done a series of videos during April, during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And so we had quite a few discussions about that. And they, when I talked to, I guess, your administrator about, if you'd like to come and if there's a book that you'd like to talk about, this is the one that you chose. And so I picked it up, I ordered it off of Amazon. And I have to tell you, when I just read her on the Wikipedia, I literally just stopped and just looked at it for about 2 minutes. I'm like, oh my goodness. So first of all, I had no idea that there was slavery going on into the 20th century. Literally, I had never heard about it. And researching some of the things that was going on, there was so much that I really didn't know about it. And then the second thing was just reading about her as a person and just what a firebrand she was. I was like, oh my goodness, she is awesome. Like, my favorite woman in the Bible is Jael, and she was totally like that. She just didn't sit back and talk. She went out and stirred things up. And if you didn't like it, well, then you just weren't going to like it, because she was not going to just change what she said because it made you uncomfortable. So I just loved learning about her. But for those of you who are not familiar with this book, we are going to be talking about Fierce Compassion, which is, let me get my slides up here. But it's a book by Catherine and Kristen Wong. This is actually a mother and daughter team. And I read a little bit about them too. And it was really cool because the daughter was in high school when they wrote it. So anyway, this is the story of, if you get the book, I think the only place you can get it is maybe on Amazon and a third-party bookseller. But the title is Fierce Compassion: The Life of Abolitionist Donaldina Cameron. And she lived from 1869 to 1968. And she her family were originally from Scotland, and then they migrated to New Zealand, and then they came to California, and they had a sheep ranch. She was part of a big family. Their family went through experienced a lot of financial loss. She lost her mother at a young age, but I think her story as one of an immigrant is very, it's very common. It's like you're looking for something better, a place where you can have your own autonomy and that there's a chance to progress. And really, when you think about it, what her family was looking for was the same thing that all the Chinese immigrants were looking for, the same thing, but they're treated differently, had very different outcomes. So just a little bit of a context of how this situation came about that she was working within. The Chinese where a lot of Chinese immigrants were allowed into the country to help build the Transcontinental Railroad. And then once the railroad was finished, they were kind of unwanted, and then they were seen as not performing a service, but as a competition for American jobs. And then this led to a lot of anti-Chinese sentiment, and there was a big uproar. And so this, in turn, led to a couple of different acts. And the first one was the Page Act in 1875, which was the first really restrictive immigration act. And then the second was in 1882, which is the Chinese Exclusion Act. And this was kind of shocking to me. This wasn't actually repealed until the 1940s. So it was just a little crazy. So this is from the book in page 32, when they're explaining the situation that brought all of this about. So they write, diplomats, merchants, and students can enter, but others were shut out, and Chinese already living in the United States could not own property or become citizens, nor could their children attend, see my typo there, attend public schools. No other ethnicity was singled out so pointedly in immigration policy. Racism was legalized.
Right.
So this, and just keep in mind, this is after the Civil War, so we should not have these differences. This is what we fought a war over. But this created a situation where you have people there that really don't have so much legal status, and these men that came over were single men, and they weren't allowed to marry American citizens. They couldn't bring their wives over. And so it created a situation where there was no legal path to establish themselves. And so in China, there was a lot of poverty, and they didn't really just touch a whole lot about all the economic situation that was going on in China at the time. But it was a situation where it was so bad there that they were looking for hope, a way of having a better life for their kids. And so these women and young girls they would get signed. These people would come over and they would promise them something. They would sign these contracts that they couldn't read, and basically selling themselves into slavery to come over there. And then were at the mercy of these people that brought them over. So they would bring them over for to be second wives, to be concubines, and sometimes into prostitution. And when you read the account of what it was like, it's pretty horrifying to know what was going on. And so this again is from the book. It's on page 34. And they write, the Chinese in California had few American friends, but they did have a few. A few devout Christians, propelled by their faith, dedicated their lives to seeking the well-being of the Chinese. At the height of anti-Chinese hysteria, several pastors and their wives, notably from Presbyterian, Congregational, Methodist, and Baptist denominations, befriended San Francisco's Chinese residents. They started to know them as individuals instead of generalizations. These pastors pointed out the hypocrisy and selfishness of Chinese racism and spoke strongly against the harsh and exploitative treatment the Chinese suffered. To advocate for Chinese immigrants, the Methodist Reverend Otis Gibson spoke courageously and wrote insistently in the local press and other venues. During one day of anti-Chinese violence, Gibson stood out to prevent the burning of a Chinese business. Rioters pelted him with stones. So this in 1975, it was 75, right? Or was it 74?
Yeah, 1875.
1875. 1875. They a group of women from Presbyterian Church opened up. Now this is a home, but at first they had a little apartment that they would do pretty much the same thing Elijah Rising is doing, trying to provide a space for these women to escape. And so they would bring them there. Eventually it went to this home, and this home, this one actually burned down, but they did rebuild it. And this home is still there. This original home is still there today, and it's actually a community center. But Donaldina Cameron came in 1875. That wasn't it. I have the dates. Okay. She came in, was it 1895? She came and she was going to teach sewing for a year.
And
yeah,
I believe it was 1895.
1895. Yeah. So she was going to teach sewing for a year, and then she ended up staying there till 1941. And her story is just so amazing. All the lives she changed, but not only the girls that she brought out, but she changed culture. She would not shut up, and she really, I think, kind of guilted people into caring, I think. And so I don't know, AJ, do you want to share your thoughts about this? This is our summary, but sure. It's just such an amazing story.
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful things to me about the life of Donaldina Cameron is her commitment to say yes to whatever God had for her, and whatever that looked like, and how that was different than maybe even what her own plan looked like, and what her own even desires. There were multiple times where she was engaged to be married, and it either fell through or her fiance died, but she kept pushing forward into what God had for her. And she laid her life down, which is what the Bible says about the there's no greater love than to lay down your life for another person. And so that's what she did. And she laid her life down repeatedly for a disenfranchised population in San Francisco, for the Chinese population. And she was bold and courageous, and she knew that she couldn't do it on her own either. So she
Mm-hmm.
got a team of volunteers and a team of police officers and politicians and supporters, financial supporters, prayer supporters, across all of San Francisco society, but also across the country and around the world, to where she had contacts that she could call upon when she needed help, when she needed a police officer to come with her for a raid and rescue a girl that was trapped in a or locked underneath the floor or in a back closet. She could grab any policeman off the streets of San Francisco because they already knew her. You know, she
Mm-hmm.
made those connections and valued relationships with people. And I think that's one thing that I find really empowering to me personally, is just how much she valued people. And because of that, people felt loved and lives were transformed. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't about a system or a process. And that's interesting coming from an operations director whose goal is all about systems and processes, and making things efficient. But to not lose sight of the relationships, because it's the relationships that transform people. It's a relationship with Jesus, but it's also a relationship with um, different people in society that can help be the body. Everyone has a different strength, and Donaldina's strength was her courage and her willingness to go wherever and do whatever it took, no matter what it looked like, no matter what it might be, the cost of reputation at the beginning, or laying down her own desires. She was willing to do whatever it took to see these women brought out of trafficking and given a chance at a life. And you know, she met these women where they were at too, which is powerful. I think it's something that we lose sight of consistently, just as a society in general. Like, she provided them a safe space in that home, but served Chinese food. Like, it wasn't
Oh, okay.
her trying to get um, these women to conform to American society, but she allowed Chinese society to be a part of that home. Like, Chinese New Year was celebrated by them, and you didn't have to be a believer to be brought into the home. They just loved you, and that was profound. It also broke down barriers to allow women to feel safe and have a safe space. If something as familiar as food is there for them. And I mean, I grew up in the Baptist church, and it's like at every function there's always food,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
like, food is a way to the person's heart and like their soul, other than like speaking their language. Food is like the
Mm-hmm.
next best thing to make people feel comfortable and at home. And that's what Donaldina did. And that was like before years of study and like of like research and psychology and sociology and all of those studies came forward. She just was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, of course we're going to serve them dumplings, like
Yeah.
from China. And then it enabled her residents to help with the cooking process, because they were just doing something that was familiar to them, that they grew up doing. So there's just so much about this book that, like, it is a great foundation read for anyone who is wanting to get an idea of what human trafficking looks like. Because unfortunately, what happened with the Chinese immigrants 100 years ago, 120 years ago, the process is still the same today. Human trafficking hasn't changed. Now, the mode in which women are trafficked has, through Facebook or the internet, is how women have been groomed now. Not just women, men too, but how grooming happens now is online, versus having someone come up to your door and offer you a job in a foreign country. But it's still happening today. The problem is still here, and God is still moving to end it and to save lives today. So, um, yeah, I think that's what um, why I picked this book, why I was so inspired when I read this the first time, and just was like, this is what, um, like, an unsung hero that a lot of the Christian community and even community at large doesn't know about, but should, because she was a game changer in her generation, of how human trafficking was handled, but also how people viewed other people and broke down barriers for other people.
That was like, you're right. There's so much in this. Like you could take any one part and do almost a whole entire book just on that one part. But one of the things that, well, there was just so much, but it showed how change comes. And I was listening to somebody that was talking about one of Dr. King's speeches, and he said, the arc of history bends towards justice, but it's like, this is how God works through people to bring about change, and he has to change hearts. And a lot of times it's the hearts of his people that he has to change, because, if his church doesn't allow him to work in their hearts, to have compassion for the poor and the downtrodden, the people who are disenfranchised, who don't have, who are forgotten. If he can't get his own people to care for them, then he can't move. He has to work in the hearts of his people first.
Right.
And especially in this past year, where I know for me, I was thinking that we in the US were in a lot better space than we actually are. And I think
Absolutely.
this past year has been eye-opening in a lot of ways. For some people, it doesn't seem like, I don't know. I guess it depends on what circles people are in. But what I see, for the most part, there hasn't been a heart change yet. That's what I see. We should have people like, especially now, because you have social media where it's all out there. Like, what did they have then to publicize this? They had papers that they didn't really, that were owned by publishers. You couldn't just go out and get the word out there. You had to literally go and knock on doors and talk to people one-on-one and get people to come out. Now it's so much easier to get the information out there. We have no excuse for ignorance anymore. There's no excuse. The information is there. But so everyone in the church should be like those women that started that home. That we should have pastors on every street corner, like those Presbyterian and Methodist pastors that are telling people, you know what, you need to be caring for them and get your heart right. But I don't know. I think, and then just learning about, there's just so much horrible thing, so many horrible things that happened. I didn't even know about that 1871 massacre until literally I was, looking for a slide. I was like, oh my goodness. And there's just so much ugliness that we just don't want to acknowledge. And you can't clean up the dirt until you know it's there.
That's true. I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, you have to be aware of our own history. Like, we have to know what has been done in the past, and there is so much darkness and so much depravity in the world that I think stories like Donaldina's are what gives us hope and light in that process. Like, that's why a story like this is so inspiring, is because she pushed back against such darkness, and she was just a normal person, so it was just like, she was educated, but not like highly educated. She wasn't like, didn't have her doctorate and whatever. She was just a normal woman who said yes to God. And that's what I want to do. I want to
teach
just a typical guy. Yeah, exactly. To do what the skills that she was already good at. She just served and volunteered in that capacity. And then that transformed into something else a couple of years later, when she became the head of the mission home. They affectionately call it 920 because of the address of the home, 920 Sacramento. So it's just like using what skill sets you already have. So it's like, if whoever's watching this, you're like, oh, how do I get involved, and how do I fight this, and how do I combat human trafficking? I'm just a person. Well, don't discount yourself. Because you've been given skill sets by God to do whatever it would take, and there's always a place to serve. So whether it's writing thank you notes, whether it's weeding flower beds, whether it's teaching sewing, whether it's having a law degree and being able to use that degree to help with victims' criminal records or court cases that women have been um, uh, unjustly charged with crimes that they didn't uh, that they were forced into. Like there's so many opportunities to serve and to get involved, and it's a simple yes. Say yes, I'll do this, and then God takes care of the rest. It's like that's where your heart change is going to come. You were talking about, Carla. It's like, why don't we have a heart change? It's because people haven't gotten a chance to see it up close and personal yet, where they've got relational capital invested. So you're looking at someone and saying, wow, I see you for who you are, and I see the pain and the struggle you're going through. And that's where this relationship is developed, and that's where the heart change happens. Whereas it's easy when you see something on USA Today or Fox News or CNN, and it's just stats and it's an overwhelming story for you just to turn off the TV. Be like, I can't handle this. Life is there's too much depravity in the world for me to digest this. And you almost get stymied and like frozen. I don't know what to do. I'm just a person. But that's where all God wants is a willing heart, and just say, yes, I will do something. I don't know what I can do, but I will serve in whatever capacity that looks like. And, Elijah Rising has great opportunities for volunteers. We're always looking for volunteers, but there are dozens of organizations across Houston, across the state of Texas, and across the United States that need volunteers, that are fighting human trafficking, fighting commercial sexual exploitation, that need an army of believers who can help combat human trafficking, because we can't do it alone. Like Donaldina showed us that in this book, is how she needed a team of people around her. She needed from all walks of life. And that's what we need. We need people from all walks of life to help, not only to give of resources and finances, but also to give of their time, to give of their talents, to give of their heart, and all of it. That's all needed across the scope to fight this and end this injustice in our lifetime. We need to mobilize the church, but we need everyone's volunteer and willingness to help, their hearts.
As you were talking, one of the things that came to my mind is that individuals are needed, right? And I know that I used to do a community event, and there was a couple. So the lady would come and help, and the man would donate, and she was kind of upset that he didn't come and help. And I'm like, you know what? We need all things. We need the hands, and we also need the money. So it's totally fine. Everybody has their area of gifting. But I think that if businesses want to be responsible, and be a part of the community that they're in, that they're, gaining profit from, that there's a it's not admin staff anymore. What is it called now? Insperity. They're like our one big major local business in Kingwood, but they give their employees one paid hour a week to go volunteer for something. So when I was in Girl Scouts, we had massive amounts of Insperity volunteers come out and help us with some of the like when they bring in all the cookies, the cookie distribution. But I mean, everybody has an obligation to give back into the community. And when you look at the Levitical laws and how they structure their society, those resource owners they weren't supposed to take it all. They were supposed to leave a little bit for the poor and the foreigners to come in and take. So they were supposed to leave part of their resources besides what they were supposed to give. So it's not all about taking all you can and squeezing out every last dollar. I mean, if you've been blessed, it's so that you can bless others. What resource do you have? Because this is what you should be giving back a tithe of, to acknowledge that it's God that's blessed you to do that. So whether
Mhm.
it's like you are a good speaker or you have a platform or whether you have time or whether you just have like a heart of compassion, it's like what is it that you're giving back to God with that, with what
Mhm.
he's given you?
Absolutely. That's really good, Carla. Absolutely. Because everyone has something. God has given everyone a
Yeah.
skill set and a tool to be used. We're all part of the body. And so everyone has a different function in the body. And if we're going to
Yeah.
operate and be a healthy body, we all have to do our part. We all have to do our the job, the skill set, the use the talent that God has given us.
Okay, I'm gonna put AJ on here because I don't know what is going on, but my camera went out. Oh shoot. Sorry. I don't know what happened
Yeah,
there. I've been having technical issues. I had to switch internet connections and now it looks like my camera is messing up. But anyway, so do you want to talk a little bit about just like the situation in Houston and
sure,
what's going on and what people can look for and
sure.
so
So
what they can be
in
aware of?
Houston, yeah. So in Houston, what I said a little bit earlier in this live stream was that recent studies show that there are over 300 illicit massage businesses here in Houston. That kind of runs the gamut uh, of illicit massage parlors, but also your illicit brothels that are in Houston. Um, and that doesn't even account for women or children or men that are being trafficked in hotels or in homes. So trafficking is a big issue in Houston. If you haven't already known, we are considered one of the most heavily trafficked cities in the country, and that's for a couple of reasons. We've got a port really in the city of Houston, Port of Houston. We've got two international airports, and our proximity to the U.S.-Mexico border all kind of funnel into uh, why Houston has such a problem with human trafficking. And also in recent studies, this was actually shared with me by a colleague yesterday. He came into my office. We were talking about it, but that in Houston, on average, 6% of all men are purchasing sex. So that's a shocking number.
Wow.
That's 6 out of every 100 men. Um, on a regular basis too. That's not just like a once a year thing. It's on a regular basis. So we've got a huge problem here in Houston. And so what Elijah Rising is doing is we're trying to bring awareness to that problem. And so what we do, one of the things we've done since we started in 2012 is offer van tours where people can sign up for a van tour and go out and see in the city where these businesses are most likely located and share where what to look for, what the signs are, so that you can just be aware of what's going on, so that you can see that, hey, this isn't just something that happens over there. It actually happens here in my community. So we're due to COVID, we kind of paused our van tours, but we're going to be relaunching them in the fall. So we've got a whole new process for van tours, which we're really excited about. That'll come in the fall. And then one other way that we have people get involved with Elijah Rising is through volunteering. So we've always got volunteer opportunities for people to come in and utilize their skill sets. We need it all. So from if you're a tree trimmer or a plumber or any of those trade skills, but also if you're someone who likes to knit or someone who likes to cook or any of those things, we can always use your help. So um, there's that. And then we just have launched our donor community, so our monthly donor community, where if you want to give to Elijah Rising on a monthly basis, similar to like your Netflix subscription or something like that, $5 a month, $2 a month, $10 a month, whatever it be, we would love your support. And we want to bring you into the community of Elijah Rising so that you see where the money's going, but also two, so you can see that you're not alone in this fight, and so that we can all see the brothers and sisters that are around us that are helping us move toward greater freedom for women who've been caught in in commercial sexual exploitation or human trafficking. So in Houston, it is it is something that we really need to address and that we've been addressing for the last 10 years at Elijah Rising, but we need the whole community support. So there are so many other organizations out here in Houston. Demand Disruption is one that works specifically with buyers of sex and helping them find freedom from addiction, sexual addiction. And then we've got like Rescue America, which is a hotline number that if women are wanting to exit, they can call through Rescue America and help plan a way out of the life, a way away from their trafficker or their pimp. So there's so many organizations in Houston that we have a really great synergy amongst all of us to really see all of us play a part in what can we do to solve a problem of human trafficking in Houston. So does that answer your question, Carla? Sorry, I might have rambled a little bit.
No, and sorry, I don't know, my cam went out, so I'm not sure what the deal is. But anyway, I also noticed that you have candles on your site. So, right? Is that made by people in the facility?
So one of our arms of our nonprofit is Elijah Rising Goods. What we do is we make home goods. We make candles. We make bath products like your soaps, your bath salts, hand scrubs, chapsticks, and these are all made by survivors of human trafficking. So we give them an opportunity to have gainful employment. So all the money that is that you spend on buying a candle or buying a chapstick or a greeting card, that money goes back to helping the next survivor with a job through Elijah Rising. So it's all volunteer. So if residents that are in our program want a job, we give them an opportunity through our social enterprise opportunity of Elijah Rising Goods. We train them, we give them skill sets so that they can help have a resume when they are looking for gainful employment after they spend some time in our restoration program. If they're looking for a job, they've got job history, they've got a positive work reference, they've got some basic job skills training of like, how do you clock in? How do you request time off? How do you advocate for yourself for a raise? We teach all of that within the social enterprise arm while also teaching them, hey, here's how you make candles. Here's how you make soap. Here's how you make a body scrub. And then we sell those so that the proceeds from all of those can go back to the next woman who wants to exit and wants a job through Elijah Rising. So you can go to shop.elijahrising.org and buy any of our products. You can also visit us. We have a house that's our office out in the Heights. And we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So you can come out and shop in person if you'd like.
Awesome.
We'd always love to see anyone who's interested to learn more about Elijah Rising.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. And I hope that everyone that watches, I hope that you think about, okay, what do I have and what can I give? And if it's not to Elijah Rising, to just ask God, okay, where do you want me to go? Where do you want to put my hands to? Where do you want me to put my energy into? What can I do to make a difference? And I also highly recommend getting this book, Fierce Compassion. It really makes you stop and think, what am I doing with my life?
Absolutely.
And so, she's awesome person. I can't wait to meet her in heaven. So anyway, AJ, thank you so much for sharing. And again, for everybody that came in and watched, I go visit their website at elijahrising.org and check out the programs that they have. And I am just wishing you the very, very best for your ministry.
Thank you.
And do you want to end this time with a prayer for?
Absolutely. I would love to. It would be a privilege.
Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Lord God, thank you for this opportunity, Lord, just to share about Elijah Rising and what you're doing to end human trafficking, not only in Houston, but throughout the world, Lord. God, we pray that you would bring justice, God, that you would bring compassion, Lord, that you would change the hearts of the church, Lord, and that you turn it, Lord, toward justice and turn it toward seeing your kingdom come and serving, God. Lord, we ask for every woman who's trapped in a lifestyle that they don't want to be in, Lord, that you would bring them a swift exit, God, that you'd bring them out, Lord, that you would keep them safe, put your protection around them, God, Lord, that you would let them know of your great love for them and your great compassion, Lord, toward them. God, would they feel your love right now, Jesus, Lord, would everyone that has listened to this live stream, God, Lord, would they feel your presence tangibly, God. We love you, Jesus. In your name, amen.
Amen. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and thank you, AJ, for coming and sharing.
Absolutely,
just
it's my
informing us
pleasure.
about what's going on. Yeah. So anyway, I hope that this has been a time of maybe you learned something you didn't know, and please share this with the people that you know, because we need more people to be aware of what is going on in our midst. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.